Thank you all for joining in today evening. As you're aware, we are going to record the conference. I'm seeking your consent for it, both from Pramod and Professor Afsar and all of you, because we will be also uploading it on YouTube. Let me first begin with introducing Khidki. The Khidki Collective is a group of scholars committed to building public dialogue on history, politics, and culture. We came together in the middle of the pandemic to think about regions and places. Our attempt has been to move beyond the academic community and speak to the larger public sphere. We are still experimenting with forms and ways through which we can achieve this. In this attempt, we have published 2 sets of public articles hosted by the News Minute and the Wire. We also intend to work with various languages of the Deccan. We are still working on it. This series, the Deccan Conversations, brings together several new scholars who are working on the region. It began on 15th of April with the talk of Hima Bindu, who discussed the Telugu periodicals and linguistic networks of the princely state of Hyderabad. Today's talk is titled An Obligation to Remember, the Integration of Hyderabad and Politics of Memorialization by Pramod Mandade. Let me first introduce the moderator for today. We are very thankful to Professor Afsar Mohammed for agreeing to moderate today's talk. Professor Afsar is a well-known writer, poet, and an academic. His first book was titled The Festival of Peers, Popular Islam and Shared Devotion in South India. His much-awaited second book titled Remaking History, 1948 Police Action and the Muslims of Hyderabad is being published by Cambridge University Press and is set to release October this year. We also had the opportunity to hear him talk about the book earlier at Khidki. It was a very enriching talk. Incidentally, Pramod was also present then and among the audience. So today, Pramod is going to present his own work and Professor Afsar is going to be interlocuting the talk. We are looking forward to the talk. Apart from academic work, Professor Afsar regularly writes poetry, short stories, and in several Telugu literary magazines. We are very thankful to him for agreeing to be here today. Pramod Mandade is a PhD scholar at Department of Sociology in Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. This work is based on his extensive fieldwork and archival work in the Marathwada region. He brings in rich insights from Marathi sources to this talk. So now getting to the format of the program itself, we first have half an hour presentation by Pramod, followed by comments and discussion by Professor Afsar. And then we can have questions from the audience and followed by discussion. Without much ado, let me invite Pramod to start his talk. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for giving me opportunity to present my work. I'll go to my presentation. I'll share my PPT. Is it visible?
Yes, yes, it is visible. Yes, it is visible. You can also go on presentation mode.
Anyway, this is fine.
Okay.
What I'm going to present today is a part of my PhD work. The focus of my work is the moment of annexation of Hyderabad princely state into Indian Union, popularly known as a police action. The Hyderabad state was coercively annexed, and the period was affected by violence before and after the event of annexation. The annexation encompasses many complicated processes and marks sudden, complex, and radical shift from the past. Apart from a territorial integration, the police action also constitute a social, cultural, and administrative integration of a space which was distinct for a long period of time. Erstwhile Hyderabad princely state had 3 linguistic regions: Marathi-speaking Marathwada, Telugu-speaking Telangana, and Kannada-speaking Hyderabad, Karnataka. I'm trying to understand police action and its contemporaneous in a Marathwada region. Due to the location of Hyderabad in Telangana and Telangana armed struggle, generally people associate Hyderabad princely state with the Telangana region. Marathwada followed a different trajectory. Hyderabad State Congress and Arya Samaj has a strong base in Marathwada. After 1938 famous Satyagraha, Arya Samaj stopped its political activity and entered into the state congress for political activities. The Qasim Rizvi was also from Marathwada, and Razakar had a very strong base in Marathwada. After police action, a large number of Muslims were killed in Marathwada. Sundarlal report mentions it as a most worst affected districts. The demand to celebrate integration of Hyderabad state as a liberation day emerged from Marathwada region. There were more than 500 princely states and not all of them readily merged. The central government saw integration of Hyderabad state as a similar...
Pramod, sorry to disturb you. Could you speak a little louder? It's a bit faint.
Yeah. The central government saw the integration of Hyderabad state as a similar to that of the merger of many other princely states. Hyderabad freedom fighter contested this claim of a government and argued that it was a last battle of Indian freedom struggle, not just merger of a princely state. They asserted that India as a nation would not have come to exist without erasing the presence of Hyderabad state. Hence, they claim integration of Hyderabad state was not a simple merger of any princely state, but it was an integral part of an Indian freedom struggle. To understand and trace the process of making of Liberation Day, I went through number of newspaper archives. For English, I went through Times of India and Deccan Chronicle, Marathi Nizam Vijay and Marathwada. And I also visited number of libraries and collected documents related to freedom struggle and later part. While glancing through the newspaper, Deccan Chronicle, I came across a debate that featured in the letter to editor section. The first debate went on over a couple of weeks. The second debate was set through letters published together on the same day. First debate began with an Hasnuddin Ahmad, a retired IS officer, pointing out a factual error and stated that Indian government appointed K.M. Munshi as an agent general to the Hyderabad princely state, position similar that of an ambassador. P. Govind Shankar responded Hasnuddin Ahmad letter. Shankar argued that the designation of K.M. Munshi was not that of an ambassador, but more like that of a governor appointed by the central government. Shankar understood the Hasnuddin's claim that intent to suggest that Hyderabad was an independent state. He says ambassadors were appointed to the foreign countries and evoke the memories of Razakar violence and brutalities. A response to P. Govind Shankar letters was published on 17 September 1997. M.M. Mohinuddin, in his response, outlined the historical fact such as standstill agreement between Hyderabad state and Indian government, Hyderabad state employing both Zain Jung and Mir Nawaz as agent general in Delhi and London, respectively. Further, Shankar says it was not a police action, it was a military action. And I quote, I hope P. Govind Shankar has heard the massacre owing to the so-called police action in the districts of Hyderabad. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru later visited these places and in fact wept. Weeping Nehru is a very powerful image. 1998 was the golden jubilee year of an integration of Hyderabad princely state. The move of Maharashtra state to celebrate 17 September as a Liberation Day generated huge debate and discussion in a whole of Eastwhile Hyderabad princely state. On the 17th September, Deccan Chronicle published 3 letters in a letter to editor section. First letter was written by Sudhakar Kanerikar, a senior citizen, as he described himself in a letter. Letter was titled Liberation Day Remember. Kanerikar expressed his wish to celebrate Liberation Day, a day on which they got independence from the clutches of Nizam and Razakar. Unquote. He further asked state government to declare 17 September as a public holiday. Second letter was written by Harishchandra Yadav. It was titled as a Memories of Losses. Harishchandra Yadav did not ask anything from the state, mentioning 17 September as a liberation day or anything, but he recounted the memories of Razakar Day. Third letter was written by Sayyid Shakil Ahmad Anwar, a title of futile misguided exercise. A letter first, in the letter's first line, author used the word merger for integration of Hyderabad state and argued that the proposed Golden Jubilee celebration of so-called independence of Hyderabad was uncalled for. He claimed that Hyderabad princely state was a never independent state from its beginning till its existence. Above mentioned letters to editor clearly illustrate that there is an ample diversity in opinions and argument about the meaning of the moment of integration of Hyderabad princely state. In the first letter exchange, the independence of Hyderabad was the locus of debate. Muslim letter writers could publicly mention about the massacre of Muslims after police action. In a second instant, Sayyid Shakil Ahmad Anwar claimed that Hyderabad princely state was always a subordinate state and Nizam willingly joined the Indian Union. These two positions were contradictory to each other, but again, they were employed to serve the same purpose. Both those letters were arguing against the glorification of integration of Hyderabad, integration as a liberation day. On 17 September 1998, there were many programs were organized. In Karnataka, Advani supposed to come and inaugurate the statue, but due to strong protest from a Muslim, the inauguration was postponed. In Hyderabad, there were also many programs. BJP actually protested, asking for a celebration of integration day as a liberation day. The first black and white photo in a PPT is the cutout they put in a Hyderabad in 1998. Second is a pamphlet put by the BJP in 2022 on a 17th September. The last one is a book of an Marathi very well-known freedom fighter. It's a cover page of the book. There are the same images. I'll come back to this image in the end. Before I go ahead, I would like to explain a bit more about, so I have used the public memory as a concept. So I will explain it. The Liberation Day remembrance is not individual or family remembrance, but it is a public recollection where various groups had conflicted memories of the event. In the context of Liberation Day, both memorials and a state legitimacy help to construct the essence of remembrance. That memory gathered also forced the other to concede their particular narrative of the past. I'm using the memory as a collective instruction where it functions like a wisdom. Sometimes it allows us to do certain thing. Sometimes it limits our action. Memory affects, informs, and influences our thought and action. Edward Casey defined public memory as a memory that occurs in the open, in front of all, and accessible in front of other and accessible to the all. The doing of a memory is what differentiates public memory from social memory and collective memory. Individuals or groups do not simply have a public memory, they do public memory. In above letter exchange and the various ways in which various political parties, they were celebrating the during whatever they were putting their perspectives about the 17th September. It's actively participating. They're doing public memory. Making of a Liberation Day, remembering martyrs. To understand the period just after 19 police action, I was going through archives of Marathi newspaper called Marathwada, which was also functioned as a mouthpiece of state Congress. Initially, Marathwada magazine was published twice in a week. Later, it became daily. Marathwada magazine proclaimed that it was, quote, a national semi-magazine dedicated to the concerns of a Hyderabad princely state. Marathwada magazine published a number of articles on brutality of Razakars, brutality and violence of Razakars. They also reported number of stories how common man resisted Razakar regime. There were reports about there were many people died in opposing Razakar. There were detailed reports about the building memorial in the name of people who died, martyrs in Marathi they called Hutatma. but there are three names appear repetitively in Marathwada. The Janardhan Nandapurkar, Bahirji Vaptikar, and Govind Pansare. These three names appear repetitively in Marathwada. For the purpose of this presentation, I just want to focus more on Govind Pansare. Hutatma Govind Pansare appeared repeatedly in Marathwada magazine. On 20th June 1949, a small piece of news appeared regarding the memorial of Hutatma Govind Pansare. The news mentioned that local government gave 4 acres of land and permission to build a memorial school. Pansare Smarak Committee called a public meeting on 21st July 1949. There is a newspaper cutout, and that cutout is a reporting of this particular event, and it's a whole page reporting. Many prominent Congress leaders, including Swami Ramanand Tirth, attended the public meeting. Initially, school was proposed as a memorial, but Govind Bhai Shroff proposed a plan for a memorial which contained library, memorial, cooperative bank, and agriculture development institute. Nanded District Congress declared that they will donate 51,000 rupees for a memorial. So Hyderabad was going through a lot. If you look at this period, Hyderabad was going through a lot of troubles and issues. The whole administration was broken down. The communal violence and a huge migration of Muslim towards city was happening. There was also communist rebellion was going on. It was a time state was facing acute hunger strike, and you see there are huge number of news reports about hunger deaths, and they were also giving rations like 50 gram of an food was a ration for people. So those kinds of news also appeared in the same day. There was new Muslim widows were also government also started giving support to the Muslim widows. They were given 3 rupees and 1 sadi as a state support. I'm just explaining this to understand the humongousness behind this memorial building, because just imagine 51,000 and 3 rupees as a support base. In 1950, Hutatma Pansare Vidyalaya was started. In 1970, Hutatma Pansare Mahavidyalaya was started. In 2003, there is a postal stamp which was released in 2003 by central government. It is important to note that Marathwada magazine described the integration of Hyderabad state as a Matrubhumiche Swatantriya, freedom of motherland, Jantecha Sangram or Lok Lada, people's struggle. They did not mention Mukti Sangram or liberation struggle anywhere. Exceptionally, only one place I could come across on the 13 September and 18 September 1949, they called it as a some places they celebrated it, they called it a Mukti Din, not Mukti Sangram Din. Around 1960, small biographical booklets of martyr emerged in a public space. One such booklet was published on a martyr Govind Pansare. It was the copy, there is a image of that booklet. It was a 20-page booklet. The price was a 50 paise. Hutatma Pansare Vidyalaya published this booklet. Govindrao Ratnalikar was a writer who was one of the founder and headmaster of the school. The booklet was published on 26 January on 1959. Hutatma Govindrao Pansare was a title of a booklet. Another booklet I was traced was on a martyr Bahirji. Professor Sham Agarwal wrote that booklet, and the principal of Hutatma Bahirji Smarak Mahavidyalaya published it. The title of booklet was Hutatma Bahirji, Hyderabad Swatantra Sangramatil Ek Tejasvi Balidanachi Kahani. The shining story of sacrifice in a Hyderabad freedom struggle. This elaborate title is an important. It was published on 17 September 1973. And they mention very clearly before that date, Hyderabad Sansthan Mukti Din. Above details are important because they indicate the change in how people perceive, how people started seeing the Hyderabad as something different than just as a part of an India. Because first booklet was published as in 26 January. So they saw the value to the 26 January more than 17 September. Yeah. from Mukti Din to Mukti Sangram Din, making liberation struggle. First set of colleges, along with schools, first set of colleges started by the freedom fighter just after integration of Hyderabad princely state. Prominent Congress leader Swami Ramanandi, Govinda Shroff, Baba Saheb Paranspe, and many other participated in a building institution. Swami Ramanandi started People's College at Nanded and Yogeshwari Mahavidyalaya at Ambezogai. Baba Saheb Paranspe was instrumental in starting Udayagiri College as Udgir and Dayanand College at Latur. Govinda Shroff was one of the main founder of an Swami Saraswati Bhuvan college, not an institution, but it's college. I will further illustrate with the example of Puranmar Lahoti Government Polytechnic College. This was India's first private technical institute, started in 1954 at Latur. Said Puranmar Lahoti was a financier of an Hyderabad State Congress in anti-Nizam mobilization. Later, he was elected to Rajya Sabha. He died in 1956. To remember the contribution of Puranmar Lahoti, trustees named the institution after him. In 1962, Maharashtra government took over the institution. One of my respondents proudly said, quote, "This is the only government polytechnical institute which is named after person. All other government polytechnical colleges are just named as a government political institution." Puranmal Lahoti's name was retained because of insistence of freedom fighter. Interestingly, the college website also referred to above history. They further says that trustees transferred the college with a condition, and condition was to keep the name of Puranmal Lahoti. Interestingly, the land was donated by Muslim person, nobody remembers him. Until 1970, hardly any report published in a Deccan Chronicle talked about people organizing, celebrating programs on Integration Day. This thing started slowly changing after 1972 onwards. The government decided to felicitate a freedom fighter to commemorate 25th anniversary of Indian independence. A prominent leader, Govinda Shroff, refused to accept felicitation, which was followed by then Chief Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao, who also refused it. They wanted state to recognize integration of Hyderabad state not just as a merger but part of an Indian freedom struggle. They claim it's the last battle of a freedom struggle, Indian freedom struggle. After much negotiation, state accepted their claim. Same year, state started a pension scheme for a freedom fighter who were facing financial crisis. After 72, there were a number of freedom fighters organization emerged. In my archival work, I was able to get some of their reports. This organization played very important role in a celebration of Liberation Day. They started Mukti Sangram, the word Mukti Sangram, very clearly, distinctively. One of the major concern of this organization was to include the underground freedom fighter as in a pension scheme. During the Razakar period, State Congress organized number of armed volunteers and trained them in a camps which were set up at a border state. Those armed volunteers are known as the underground freedom fighters. Later in 1980, they were also included in a freedom fighter category. During my fieldwork at Udgir, a small border town in Marathwada, I met Ahmed, a retired bureaucrat. At the time of police action, he was a 13-year-old boy. He lost 4 family members in the violence that was followed after police action. After his retirement from public service, he visited places where Muslims were killed and tried to collect the oral narratives of the violence. He was a keen observer of various political development in the region. I was discussing Freedom Fighter Association's report with Ahmed. He said, I quote, "It is incorrect to say that government did not recognize armed revolutionaries and underground freedom fighter, but government was reluctant in the context of Hyderabad because the border camp freedom fighters also participated in a killing and looting of many Muslims after police action," unquote. In many places, local chapters of these freedom fighter association continued. They participated in a popularizing Liberation Day. For example, in Latur, Freedom Fighter Association was one of the first group who started celebrating it as a Liberation Day. They started organizing public event, Prabhat Pari, morning walks with the image of an martyrs on 17th September. The organization report of 1993 mentioned that how after 1993, how after 90s, with involving student, their celebration become more and more popular. In 92, they started organizing Liberation Day at a taluka levels. Soon, Shiv Sena took it. I'm not bringing the role of Shiv Sena in mobilizing, but Shiv Sena is a very central in a politicizing way. BJP did it in trying to do it in here. Shiv Sena did it much earlier in Marathwada. Soon, Shiv Sena took over the celebration to large scale. They started celebrating in each taluka in Marathwada. Earlier section, I mentioned a role of Marathwada, role of freedom fighter in a founding series of colleges in Marathwada region. These colleges also publish a commemorative volumes. These are the commemorative volumes. They mostly published after 1990s. Different colleges. I mentioned about Nanded College. The Abhiyan is published by Nanded. This Babasaheb Paranspe is published by Ambezogai. So these different colleges publish these commemorative volumes. They are very central in a popularizing Liberation Day. They are also handy in a, if I go back and see Marathi newspaper reporting, most of these reporting is based on these commemorative volumes. And they clearly started using the word Mukti Sangram. In 1990, there was a huge fight for in Marathwada on Namantar, renaming of Marathwada University. Freedom fighter opposed the renaming. It was a long fought battle. In 1994, on 17 September, Maharashtra government started a new university at Nanded, and it was named after Swami Ramanand Tirth. And first Vice Chancellor recounts that he says he was insisting on that the foundation of the university should be on a 17 September because they could celebrate University Foundation Day along with the Liberation Day. Or with Liberation Day, whatever. The Liberation Day, to popularize it also, they played a very central role in popularizing Mukti Sangram Day. I'll come to the, so these are the series of booklets which were published in 1976. These are 20 number of booklets published on an individual freedom fighter, small booklets, very popular. The second series of booklets, these are 50 numbers of booklet. Again, they are very popular. And these freedom fighters control the educational institute in libraries. And these production is circulated. I also read when I was a student, one of those booklet. So making of an freedom, Mukti Sangram, this booklet plays a very central roles also. I'll come to the memorialization part of my presentation. This is a Hajj house image, and this is a Vande Mataram, which is very adjacent. You can see the Minar of Hajj house. So it's adjacent, and you can see the image of Bharat Mata at the front. In Marathwada, Vande Mataram song is a bone of contention for a long period of time. The history begins with 1938. The students of Usmania University demanded that they should be allowed to sing the Vande Mataram song in their prayer hall. Nizam denied, saying that it's not a religious song, saying that he denied the permission. Aurangabad students also went on a strike in support. In 1982, the state government announced that they would construct the Vande Mataram Hall in the memory of a student who protested the Vande Mataram movement, 1938. In the Vande Mataram Hall, in 1988, Shiv Sena, in the midst of huge opposition, passed a resolution to sing Vande Mataram at the beginning of a municipal corporation meeting. And if you remember, the Asuddin Owaisi also chose a place called Udgir to say that nobody can force him to sing Vande Mataram. There is a history for why he chose those things. I won't go in detail. Yeah. So all this area where this Vande Mataram and Hajj house is built was earlier part of an Kilayark, which was fort built by Aurangzeb. It was fortification wall. They demolished it, and nearby there is a Shahi Masjid close to this. Yeah. So this was part of an Waqf land. Yeah. Waqf board reserved that land for a Hajj house, got permission to build, but there was a delay in needed to start the construction. Freedom fighters, Shiv Sena, and other activists started claiming the land for Vande Mataram auditorium. They wanted to build the memorial for a Vande Mataram movement, as a memorial for Vande Mataram movement. After there is a long, it went to the court case and long delayed happened. In 2012, Muslim organization went on a hunger strike to demand to start the construction of Hajj House. There was a compromise was arrived, and government divided the Hajj House. Government divided the land between Hajj House and Vande Mataram. Both are now side by side, adjacent to each other. Inside the Vande Mataram house, there is a permanent exhibition about Hyderabad Mukti Sangram, and this is a facade of an Vande Mataram house. And if you walk 100 meters long, there is an museum. It's named after Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Puran Vastu Sangrahalaya. And if you enter, the first image you see is this image of a museum. And if you walk through this museum, Hyderabad is an historical city, but you don't find anything about Hyderabad. Shivaji never came to Marathwada, but every monument, everything represents a Maratha history. Only Muslim related thing is there, coinage, coins of different rule. Apart from that, there is nothing in. So this was also part of an Kilyar. The fort which was built by Aurangzeb. Second, this is a memorial of an, which was built in 1972. Mukti Sangram memorials. Over a period of time, there were 3 different kinds of memorial built in the memory of freedom fighter in Marathwada. To celebrate 25 years of independence and honor the local martyrs of freedom fighter, in 1972, government installed the memorials at various places. A small platform was built and a stone block was installed at a raised platform. On one side of a block, there was an martyrs' names were inscribed, and other side, tremble was carved. This was not a special memorial. It was a part of a larger building memorial process. Many of these memorial, and this was not an imposing. If you look at the place, it's not like an imposing, or it's not a grand or something, it's a small. Many of these memorial vanished, hardly anybody noticed about it. So I tried, so there's a list of a name. I tried to find out this list, but I could not find out before 45. There's a 45 number is there, but before those 45 number, there are different places they installed in Udgir. These are memorials in Udgir, but I could not locate other 2 memorials. In 1982, to celebrate 50th anniversary of Quit India movement in Maharashtra, Quit India movement, the Maharashtra government built a Hutatma Smarak in number of places. And that is also similar in many places. It's not on an entrance, you get a list of names of martyrs. There is a hall built for it. And one big pillar was built in it. So that was special memorial, but which was also part of a larger memorial circles. This is a Hyderabad Mukti Sangram memorials. In 1998, Maharashtra state government sanctioned a celebration of 17th September as a Liberation Day, and 1999, next year, they inaugurated a Mukti Sangram memorial where they could conduct a flag hosting on a Liberation Day. Unlike earlier 2 memorials, these were a special memorial about Mukti Sangram. These memorials were built in a prominent places. These memorials are surrounded by huge open space. In the middle of open space, on a raised platform, in the middle of open place on the raised platform, the memorial is erected. On the memorial, there are number of images of martyr and prominent freedom fighter. This is one of the panel. This is an right-hand side, Arya Samaj magazine. They published 1973 commemorative volume, and this is a front page of it. And this is a memorial's front panel. You see, they have just suppose took it from it and put it here. Sardar Patel image is one prominent figure on a memorial. It is the only memorial. It is the only national leader who got space on the memorial. During my field, I realized that I realized people differentiate between Nehru and Patel. Most of my respondents blame Sardar Patel for a Muslim massacre. So what is this? What is it Muslim are doing about this in Marathwada? In 2012, 10-12 around, group of people in Ausa came together and started giving memorandum to the district collector asking to release Sundarlal report. And these memorandums are given every year on a 13th September. If you visit Aurangabad on a 13th September, 17th September and Babri Masjid Babri Masjid demolition day, city is divided into two. On one side, there is a celebration. Other side, at least on 17th September, there is like a curfew. One of the bureaucrat whose family members were lost in a police action, she told me that she takes leave for 10 days from 10th September to 20th September because she cannot, she has to, if she doesn't take a leave, she has to do the flag hosting program. And she cannot reconcile with loss. So she takes leave and she says that earlier she took leaves on 15th, 2 days before the 17th September. People realize it. So she has to take a 10 days of leave. Recently, in 2022, in Asuddin Owaisi, first time participated in a Liberation Day. He called it as a Unification Day and elaborately spoke on that day about Muslim massacre after police action. Before that, I just want to read out a little bit. In 2014, State Assembly saw the entry of AIMIM in Maharashtra, where Imtiaz Jalil emerged as a prominent and vocal voice from Aurangabad. In that year after 2014 victory, he never attended any 17th September celebration, much to the chagrin of the opposition and various civil society organizers of the event. In a parliamentary election held in 2019, Imtiaz won a Lok Sabha seat from Aurangabad. Again, his absence from 17th September became a talking point. Over the year, pro-liberation struggle narrative members never failed to drag Imtiaz into attending the event. Imtiaz continued to remain absent without vocalizing reasons. In 2019, on the day of a commemoration, Shiv Sena MLC went one step ahead and demanded Imtiaz to be booked under sedition for his absence from a celebration. She said, I quote, "It appears that Imtiaz is still consider himself a slave of Nizam. If so, he should resign from Lok Sabha and the government should prosecute him for a sedition. Doesn't Mr. Imtiaz feel that it is his responsibility as an elected representative to respect the martyrs who liberated the region from Nizam?" Hitting back his critique, Imtiaz said, I quote, "I don't need certificate of patriotism. I have been elected by nearly 4 lakh people and I am sure they were not Razakars." I just want to come back to my conclusion. I begin with this image. If you remember, Nizam bowing down to the one. So this image is a repetitive image. It appears so many places. This appear even official celebration in Telangana. This image is official celebration of image. In the presentation, we see since the moment of annexation of Hyderabad, one section of community has constantly produced strong narrative of a history, continue to keep the history alive in a present from a building memorials and producing literature. The politics of memory is deeply entangled with the politics of contemporary. One can see it in the effect in a remembering the past struggle or event, but rather way certain memory of defeat and humiliation. These memorials are memorials of memory of violence, massacre that followed police action. Memorials are also repositories of feeling, emotion. Scholars have divided memorials into 2 types. First, memorials that acknowledge an event of shame, such as the Holocaust memorials. Second type of memorials are those that remind people a historical event and person. The process of memorialization involves a range of ethical choices, such as what is to be remembered, how something is remembered, and most importantly, what remembrance is invoked in a recipient. The earlier description of memorial clearly shows that a section of society, want to give certain message. You want to so I come back to my title where I said it's an obligation to the remember. Even if Muslims refuse to participate, they are again and again brought into celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod. Thank you very much for that presentation. Professor Afsar, may I invite you to give your comments and discussion? Pramod, can you stop sharing your screen?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Pramod. I really enjoyed this talk. Did you guys hear me?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yes,
So,
yes.
of course. Okay. So there are so many things, Pramod. We just need to unpack each dimension of this like aspect, particularly because we are not that familiar with Marathwada and then what's happening there. And then we lost that kind of material for a long time. And then you are bringing this back. In many ways, it's actually a meaningful continuation to what Himabindu did last time. So like in creating this public sphere, and then what kind of tools people are using to engage with this memory. And then hopefully, but only difference is that Himabindu was focusing more on the past, and then Pramod focusing more on the contemporary kind of portrayal of all these politics. I'm so happy that kind of, when you juxtapose those things, it's kind of gives you a good picture of what is happening right now in the name of memory, and then public memory particularly. But of course, I look forward to more. I'm particularly thank you, Kidki team, the entire team. Maybe along the similar line, we can have some conversation about Kannada, Urdu materials as well. So this becomes a beautiful edited volume if you plan it in future, like how public sphere was created. So so many things, Pramod, to learn from your work. One big thing for me is like the way you like use these counter archives, and then also reconstructed them to understand the politics and then sociological setting of these aspects. So it's kind of a big learning lesson, and the way you blended the like archives and then historical kind of analysis, that's also very like contemporary and also very, very relevant for the discussions that are happening right now. Not just about police action, also like it takes us back to like all the discourses that are happening in the name of violence, communal politics. So, but there are so many things that I wanted to ask, but I just want to limit to just 4 aspects. I hope that makes sense, because what I hear is kind of quite different from Hyderabadi setting. What is happening in Marathwada, it looks like more intense there, like particularly after 1997. And then you have this gradual kind of development of this kind of discourse. You also took us back to 1973, which is like totally like a new thing for me, because in the case of Hyderabad, I don't think we have that kind of like background, right? So, but I kind of personally witnessed 1997 in Hyderabad, so I know how those multiple dimensions worked. So the question, I'll go directly to questions, Pramod. basically like these are my just very basic questions. You don't have to take them. You don't have to respond to them, or you just ignore them. But I would love to hear from you about those questions. One thing is, Pramod, around 1997, there might be some like incidents of violence as well, right? Because a lot of things were happening, maybe at the political level, but also like public religious discourse was also like changing. So I actually wanted to hear, like, of course, you talk focusing on memory, but there is also like a question about how this reconstruction of memory kind of might have led to some violence, right? So there must be some examples related to that. As a sociologist, I think maybe it is important for you to look into those aspects. And the second thing is, particularly because my evidence comes from Telugu, so whatever I say, it is all basically like Telugu-centered kind of approach, right? In 1990s, we have this emergence of identity politics, including feminism, Dalits, and of course, as a part of this, we also have Muslim discourse, what we call like Muslimism. So I'm just wondering, I know you did a lot of ethnography, talking to so many people. You gave the evidence from like your field research evidence from this Hajj House and Vande Mataram auditorium and other like some cooperative thing. But I just want to hear more about the response. Did you get any opportunity to document responses from these groups? Because it's a question deeply connected to identity, right? So it's not just because, of course, it's a lot of emphasis on nationalist politics, but still, it's also so important in the context of local politics and local discourses, right? So, but I always feel the documentation of such memory would be incomplete if we fail to document the reception, right? So I need you to figure out this balance between the incident event and in its memory. Maybe it's like an old idea, but there might be like some metaphorization of this memory event as well, right? That happened in the case of partition, right? And then the third question is like, I know there are a lot of politics in legitimizing this memory, right? But what I see in your presentation mostly is this re-emergence of nationalism, like as a master kind of narrative, and then its hegemony on local kind of discourses, right? So of course, this is a post 1992 kind of aspect, but post 1997. Since that issue is so connected to local and then also Hyderabadi kind of context, that becomes really intense. This we see all the ways, like so many ways of like using nationalism as a device to control discourses, right? So I actually wanted to hear more about the tensions between this nationalism versus local discourses. Like you kind of came up with this Pansare stamp and all these things, right? Like also, I kind of interesting to see this Telugu person like Vande Mataram's Ramachandra Rao's story in Marathwada discourse. So there is something happening there, right? And then finally, maybe this is my last, Pramod, sorry to ask so many questions. So the final question, last one is, I'm so intrigued by your discussion on the politics of spaces and their connection to memory. So this entire issue between Hajj House And then Vande Mataram auditorium is not a simple kind of aspect, even though if you go to that place and then like look at those sites, you feel like, oh my gosh, this is something quite interesting, but there is also a tension there, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So there is also the erasure of Muslimness within this kind of discourse, right? So there kind of lot of effort to erase whatever looks like, sounds like Muslim, right?
Yes, yes.
So maybe, so if you have something more from Muslim community, particularly, like you have different layers of Muslim community, right? So in Hyderabadi context, we can clearly see those like, okay, lower class, middle class, and upper caste. There's also like Ajlafi versus Ashrafi kind of debates along the similar lines. So I'm sure those things are happening in this space as well.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
there, I think we can clearly see the politics of nationalism, the politics of localism. But my goal, my maybe that's my mission to talk more about Muslim question. But I just want to hear more about the resistance from the Muslim community, or but of course you have this. Of course, Marathwada is also equally important in the context of Dalit politics. So, and then I'm sure 1990s, like one of the big landmarks in this kind of debate. So I actually want to see if there is any Muslim Dalit kind of solidarity to counter this nationalist discourse.
Yeah.
So thank you, Pramod. I'm going to stop there.
Thank you very much. And I'm really sorry you have to read my draft. So these are very interesting questions. And I will start with from a last where you, so there is I don't know, there's a thing called Muslim Marathi Sahitya Sammelan. This is also one part of my literature, one chapter where I'm working on them. These are the first, so they claim Dalit Muslims, their identity is in Dalit Muslims. They took inspiration from an Dalit literature. They have their own organization. It's a very collective effort. There are two things they claim. One is belonging to the region by saying Marathi is their mother tongue. Second, they link themselves with the Dalits and say we are from here and we converted as a part of a protest. The first and only, most probably, Marathi, there is something about police action written by any Muslim is written by first president of this Muslim Marathi Sahitya Sammelan. His name is Famu Shahjinde. And he begins it by saying, ki, what I have experienced about police action is not what is there in a public space. And I am going to write about what I experience in a public space. So like that, he begins and he writes. So that there is that aspect is there, very strongly present, and they are the one who are resisting. Even for an renaming of an Aurangabad, that conflict comes up very powerfully. The renaming happened in 1997. That's in 1997 context. It was stopped and other things are there. Then again renaming is happening. The lower caste Dalits Muslims started saying that the new name should be, if you want to name something, we'll accept that Aurangzeb is you are not ready to accept Aurangzeb as a thing. Then you named it after Malik Ambar, who is the founder of NCT, who is a part of NCT. Ambarabad is the option given by them, but it is not received by the elites. So that conflict comes up many places, many times. That is the one thing. 1997 is also very important because BJP government comes into the power in 1995. And there are small, what is called, the localized and very intense othering begins very strongly in this period. It begins with an Babri Masjid demolition, but coming into power gives that impunity to the right wing. And this place itself in 1996 onward, the process of renaming of Usmanabad and Aurangabad begins. So about 1997, Dalit discourse is a very interesting discourse about police action. During the renaming of an Marathwada University, freedom fighter group, they published a booklet called Hiladonukka, which means why this is imposition only on us. So Marathwada is our identity, and Dalit, every Maharwada, the first line of that booklet begins with saying every Maharwada was Razakar base, and why are you giving Dalit name to the university? That was a bone of contestation, and it went for a 25 years of fighting. So it goes back to the police action movement. There were Dalit who supported part of an Razakar A because Nizam gave them land. So land and these questions are very entangled in a Dalit movement. For a long period of time, there is an movement going on for a Westland. So it's also linked with that part of it. So that is an identity kind of, and what is happening. So and Muslims actually inspired from an way Dalit gives back to the freedom fighters. And they wrote about, very interestingly, this phase. I mentioned three names of an martyrs. All of them are Brahmins. And if you look at the authentic history of an Marathwada Mukti Sangram, written by Anand Balerao, there are no mention of an non-Brahmins. Actually, people started writing after 70. So Dalits have very confused position how to understand they have a stake in the nation, and still their history is contradictory to that. So they are very confused about it. It reflects in their positions and other things. Yeah, so that is about nation. But thank you for your comments. I don't know whether I answered you well or not.
Yeah, I want to hear. Like, looking forward to your book, Pramod. All the best. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the responses.
We can now have questions. Whoever has questions, if you can raise your hand and ask.
Ma'am, may I ask one question?
Sure. Go ahead.
I would first of all thank you for this fascinating and brilliant lecture. It's quite inspiring, and I want you to please define the whole notion, the whole concept of politics of memorialization. How you see it from the context of a personality of a person, also from the context of memorials. How do you define it from a sociological point of view, and if you can define it from a historical point of view? Thank you so much.
Okay. Could I answer?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah. But maybe we can take one more question, and then you get some time to formulate that. Anyone else has any questions?
I can ask.
Yes. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Pramod. It was so fascinating to listen to your fieldwork notes, and I thought that it was such detailed and intimate fieldwork that you presented before us. So thank you very much for sharing that. I wanted to ask you a little bit about sharing with us, if it's okay with you, about how you started on this work, and and the journey you've had since then. And secondly, I wanted to ask you also about why you chose the freedom fighter as an entry point into understanding memorialization, but also what does it tell us about the contemporary moment, or what is it that you're trying to do with looking at the freedom fighter as a figure in your work? Thank you.
Pramod, you can go ahead and answer.
Thank you for yes. So I looked at as in so there is a lot of literature on memorialization, and I'm looking at two kinds of literature. One is there are memorials in US about white men who opposed the who were against the abolition of slavery. So there are a number of memorials. There are some word I'm forgetting. They are called particularly something. That work, and other is in Sri Lanka, close to us, where Shashank Pereira has worked on how do one understand memorials from perspective of an dominance. From when this memorialization appears, what is it they talk about? And so because these two examples are useful for me to think about, and because these are the dominant, they hold power, but still they want to make this very visible. This is an obsession with, it's very, one thing really stuck to me is about this obsession. You go walk everywhere, it's there. It doesn't leave you. And they don't allow even Muslim to get away with it. They bring back every time. So I was trying to think about these, how do one think of these kinds of acts and memorialization? And so that kind of a literature little bit helped me. Then personalities and member, I describe about the Patel as an coming very prominent figure, and the image I started with an Nizam bowing to the Patel, and Patel is blamed everywhere. I'll give you one more anecdote. One of the place where Razakar place of violence is a Gorta in Karnataka, Bidar. Interestingly, what is a memorial they built? They built a huge memorial. They built a memorial, 30 feet high statue of an Patel. What is it they want to talk about it? The memorial is for people who were quote unquote killed during the Razakar period, but the memorial constitute with a Patel. So there is a very clear, unuttered message for everyone. So that kind of thing is happening everywhere. So I was trying to think about those, and hence I'm using this word obligation. So that, I don't know whether I answered first question. Yeah, the second question, thank you. I wanted to work for a long period of time as a backwardness, Marathwada as a backwardness. And with that enthusiasm, I looked at a history. And I was very impressed with, and it is a huge amount of literature. So first time I encountered is the A.J. Noorani's book. And actually a Frontlines article. And that was a shock for me because he mentioned a Latur. He says that Sundarlal report says that 10,000 Muslims were there. After police action, only 3,000 remain, and official number is, they say 1,000 Muslims were killed. I have come from that place and never heard this story. And I was shocked, and I can't say Noorani is one who can propagate something with baseless or something. So I went back and I asked my grandmother about it, and she suddenly spoke. She said she was traveling from one place to other place during that period. The sadi ka pallu rehta hai na, she hold that. So there was so much burning of flesh. She said she hold that pallu to her nose and she could not remove it till she went to the other place. And that is her memory of that moment. I was like, oh, then there is something more to it. And that's how I started beginning to work on this. Freedom fighter is not very central figure in my work. This is just chapter of my work. I have collected the narratives of even Afsar Saab for also. I have documented also and collected the narratives of victims also. And I have looked at how every generation sees this, not just about the Muslims. So freedom fighter is one inevitable aspect of that. You cannot escape it. And they are hegemonic presence in Marathwada, not just as for this context, but other context also. They led the anti-Namantar movement also, whatever the mobilization. They are very central in a demanding development of Marathwada. So a lot of other things, they are very central to the politics of Marathwada. So I can't escape them, but my central thing is I'm looking at trying to understand the police actions and its contemporariness for a different kinds of societies, so different kinds of communities, how do they think, what do they, and where does it come? So my thing is, it doesn't leave you. It's a sedimented memory, it's a layered memory where many, so the core of it is a police action. That's for every political social activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod. Any other questions from anyone? Yes, you go ahead.
Thank you, Pramod, for a very fascinating discussion. I'm really looking forward to your book. I have a question. As you said, there's sedimented memory. So I think even for the Muslim memory is layered. It is almost as though the Muslim community there, including the Majlis members or Radhakars, were working autonomously from the central leadership in Hyderabad. There is a book by A.R. Yafei, was published by Tabir Millat in 2001 about Udgir. It goes into detail and talks about cross-communal solidarities between Muslims, and I think he cites a person by the name of Lakshaya. I believe he was a Dalit, and how they fight against Appa Rao.
Yeah.
I mean, it appears almost semi-fictional, but I wonder how you incorporate those memories in your research. There's another book published from Aurangabad. I'm forgetting the name. Small book. I think about 150 pages. They have their own localized history or the memory of police action. So I'm wondering how you incorporate these memories, which are difficult to analyze or categorize, and how we deal with them.
Thank you it's a very difficult question to respond, but I'll try. Yeah, I met Yafei Saab when, he's I have a very interesting story to tell about it, but sometime later. Because first time I went, he said, why are you working on police action? You should work on Galib, not on police action. And then he refused to speak to me. Then I went to different sources. Slowly he started talking. Anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, Yafei Saab is one very important person who actually documents it. So layered memory, when I said layered memory, I wanted to say about, it's not, police action is not the incident. It's the incident, but it's remembered at a different tension period. Remembered at a, even in a villages, local conflicts, it has been evoked. So this layer memory become really like riots and other places, this memory comes back. It comes back repetitively. Even in when I met one of my respondents told me how the voice of siren makes him anxious every time. He goes back to police action every time whenever he listens that voice of siren. So there are memories which are very difficult to categorize. But there are very few people who had actually spoken about it. This silence itself speaks volume about it. When I started working about it, for 2 years, I met number of people, and I thought that should be my title of an whatever thesis I say. They say it's not a story, it's an abditi, but we don't want to talk to you. There's a refusal to talk to you, because there is a lot of anger about it. There is a lot of, so it's a very difficult to categorize such kind of memories. There's one book, Muhammad Ali Khan has written a very interesting book, which talks about post-police action, what is happening. And he referred multiple times, different kinds of ways in which state reminds them about police action. He contested election from Tuljapur, and one from a Shetkari Kamgar party for assembly. He's a very fascinating man. The one pamphlet comes up day before and says, don't vote for Razakar. and he lost by 700 votes, and he never contested election. He lost his one son in a Babri demolition period. So these kinds, it's very difficult to respond your question, but I don't know. I don't have direct answer to your question, but one needs to engage with even the refusal also, I feel. And I am thinking about a silence and refusal to engage with even police action period. You don't see anything in a public. So that's the answer. I don't know. I am not sure whether I answered yours.
Thank you, Pramod. Any other questions? Okay, I have a question.
Swati, okay, I'll ask after you, Swati.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm so excited.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. This is fun. Definitely go ahead.
Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, Swati. I had another question about cross-community solidarities. If you I was recently writing something about Sundarlal report, and one thing which struck me, which I think has not been paid enough attention in the Sundarlal report, is the weaver community in, I believe, Karnataka or Marathwada. They are saying they actually saved the Muslims or rescued them.
Yeah.
So, and I remember I used to visit a small town called Itkal and Gurmitkal in Karnataka in my childhood, and there I witnessed that the Mehtar community. There is a localized memory there that the Mehtar community saved the Muslims when the riots or the massacres happened. So, are you also looking at that region as well, or are you just limited to Marathwada?
So my field work is stretched between Usmanabad to Bidar. I visited many places in Bidar also. So what you are saying is that inter-community dynamics is a very solidarities are there. There is a lot of, it's not all communities who does this. If you talk to people, they say in Bidar period side they are Lingayats. If you come to Usmanabad, they say Maratha. Other communities actually same. So there are number of small autobiographies. I have looked at Dalit autobiographies. Some have mentioned about how they say Dalit autobiographies, Muslim. So there is a solidarity between Muslim and Dalit that also lies on a historical solidarity. It's not new, but Dalits were also facing a lot of violence in this period. There is a letter written by Ambedkar which says all Dalits were not Razakar, so don't punish all. So some of them were my followers. So I met a number of people who said after Baba Sahib intervention, the police action violence stopped on us. So Dalits were also facing a lot of violence in the same period because they got in land, they started questioning the landlords. During this period, they were independent and they got a supporting hand from a Muslim. So Sham Sundar and other are very important in this story, part of this story. Yeah.
In fact, I have something which is associated with this question itself. So when I was looking at police action, I mean, you remember one of those letters which I had shared, basically, which talks about the perpetrators, the caste of the perpetrators, which is like literally addressing that it is the Pandits who were killing and things. So, and you would also, so can you talk about how do we look at the same thing which we're already talking about, but in intersection with the freedom fighters and how it continues still, or how does it manifest in today's time?
I
the caste,
did not got your
no,
question.
I'm saying the caste dynamics of freedom fighters and the caste dynamics of police action violence. which we're already talking about, but if you want to expand on it.
So the caste is a very central in the making of the police action violence also. Most of the caste, which are landed caste actually, and trading caste are very central in a perpetuating violence. And they are also support base of an Arya Samaj. For example, Lingayats, they are traders as well as landlords in this region. Also, certain parts Maratha, and many places here, quite a good number of Brahmin landlords were also there. For example, Setumadara Pagdi, not Pagdi, what is his name? I forgot. Historian, there is an historian. He is landlord from Nilanga. So there are many people who are Brahmins were also part of landlord in this. So land is a very central contestation. And lower Marathas were actually supportive of, so within Maratha, there is a Kunbi Maratha and the upper Maratha that always had a fight with it. So lower Maratha was always supportive of it. And lower Maratha was part of this Shetkari Kamgar Paksh, Shekap, PDP, one of first radical left ML party in India. That was the first ML party in India. So people remember, there's one leader called Uddhavrao Patil from Usmanabad. People remember him even now. I was talking to some people, they said they change his last yatra, marne ke baad the commemoration goes away. So they change and they make sure it will go to from the Muslim localities to just to pay the homage to that man, because he constantly helped them. He is one figure, gave them back land. Even now, if I talk, they really talk about him as their own family member kind of a person. They adore him a lot. So that kind of things were there in a caste dynamics way. Within Dalits also, there are two fractions. One was with Scheduled Caste Federation, one was with Sham Sundar and other. So other section faced violence, and other was a part of a freedom fighter group. So Scheduled Caste Federation. So there is a lot of complex issues. This is not an. I am trying to deal with a more. The issue is very complex, and it's difficult to explain in a simple way. Yeah.
Thank you, Pramod. Any other questions from anyone?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Pramod. It was a very
Hi.
good presentation. Yeah, I just had, it's not exactly a question, just something that I wanted to know. You were talking about memory, public memory, and the doingness of the memory, and how, and in connection to that, I was thinking, you were saying that there were freedom fighters were given housing after a point of time. Yeah, so near my house, like for a long time, there was this building which was named like Freedom Fighters Building. So did you come across such kind of, because it's not just, we don't like memorialize public, in that sense, public spaces exactly. We also memorialize homes.
Yeah.
And even the houses become the memory, form the memory of the everyday. So I was just wondering if you came across any of this kind of public memory as well. Just curious.
Yeah. I have not presented here, but in Aurangabad, Aurangabad is a fascinating city. One place where they reserve there is a library called Swami Ramanand Tirth Memorial Library, and they have collected a huge amount of material. A lot of material I got from there. And interestingly, it's at a center of a city. And surrounding that, there is around 200, 180 around houses are there, huge houses. It's called Swatantra Sainik Colony. So being part of a freedom fighter organization, what I said about earlier, were material interest. So they had formed a cooperative. They were given a land in many places, not just in Aurangabad, across places in Marathwada. They were also, family members were given jobs and other kinds of things. So the organization was very important to get that. There is that kind of thing is there in a huge way. It's not in a small manner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod. I think we close the talk because it's already 8 o'clock. Thank you all for joining in. Please do join in for the next talk, which is on May 13th by Namrata Kanchan, who is a PhD scholar from University of Texas at Austin. She's going to talk about forging early modern Deccanese literary canons. We will share the details very soon. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, Pramod. We really learned a lot. In fact, it was such an enriching thing. We are going back with so many things. And thank you very much, Professor Afsar, for being here and for that great discussion. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Thank you for giving me opportunity. It's an interesting to talk. This was just a draft I have presented. So thank you very much.
Looking forward to your work, reading your work.
Thank you.
Pramod, if you can share your WhatsApp number, that will be awesome.
Yeah. Just 1 minute.
Ayub, he's on the Kidki group, so you can find him
Yeah,
there.
he's on the Kidki group.
Okay.
I'll also share it with you.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I'm closing.